Dead Atlanta, how you guys feeling this morning? Thank you, sir. The rest of you guys feel like me, I can already tell. All right, guys, we're getting ready to kick off this panel. I'm gonna bring my man Michael Exler up here from the East Coast Horror Group. Michael, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Hey, you know what? Here, let me give you a mic too. All right. Hey, guys in the back, unless you're just trying to like sit at the back of the bus and be all Rosa Parks on us and shit, you guys are more than welcome to move on up. We're all VIPs, feel free. That goes for you guys too, you're more than welcome, come on up. Everybody's VIP up in here today. Check. It's all you, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children. Thank you again for joining us here at Days of the Dead, Day 2, Saturday, first panel of the evening, bringing you two of the greatest minds in indie horror. Hailing from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is the master of the macabre. Let's spread the sickness for Mr. Fred Vogel. And in the blue corner, hailing from Chicago, Illinois, he is the collector of the collective. He is Jason Hoover.
All right, guys, we're going to start off with a few little softball questions, if you will. So, what got you into this horror thing, both of you?
Fred Vogel got me into independent horror. I didn't know it was accessible to people like me. I really didn't. I had no idea that you could just go make a movie. And through meeting Fred at Cinema Wasteland, it really became like this doable thing. Like, he was like, just go make a movie. And I was like, with who? He's like, whoever you can find, man. Get a camera, get a computer, and make a movie. So that's how I started.
I wanted to make movies since I was really little. I was making movies through college, when I was learning special effects. When I first moved to Pittsburgh, that's when I really realized that there was the birthing of a scene going on. There was a lot of movies coming out of Dayton, Ohio, with films with like Jim Van Bever and Andy Kopp. Over in St. Louis, there was Eric Stanzi, and there was nobody in Pittsburgh. By that time, Romero moved out, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be that guy. So, as I was teaching at the Tom Savini Makeup School, I wanted to make my first feature, and I didn't have any money, but I knew that I had the talent to make something. So I just went into it, head first and never looked back.
Very cool, very cool. So talk about, I know you talked about Tom Savini's school just now, but talk about your education and formal training in movie making.
I have no training in movie making. How I thought I was going to get into the business was by being a special effects artist, kind of like how Savini did it. The whole reason why I moved to Pittsburgh was because that's where George Romero and Tom Savini were from. And if I was going to have a chance, I wanted to work with these guys. So I went there. I knew the Art Institute of Pittsburgh had a special makeup effects program, and I heard that Tom Savini at some times would do lectures and things like that there. First time I met Tom, he was signing autographs at a mall during Halloween time. And I told him that, hey, I'm Fred, I just moved here from New Jersey, I want to sculpt a Frankenstein. I'm like, do you have any advice? He's like, yeah, buy my book. And I was like, you son of a bitch. But you know what I mean? Like, it didn't sink in, this guy that's been signing autographs for 3 hours in the mall, so I'm sure he's, maybe having a bad day or something like that. But it inspired me to be like, you know what? If nobody's going to help me, I'm just going to do it myself. I might as well just sculpt what I need to sculpt, do what I need to do. And I graduated top of my class at the Art Institute and was literally plucked out at my graduation to become a teacher at what became the Tom Savini Makeup School. So it was literally like, oh my God, everybody's like, what do we do? We're never going to get a job. And I was just like, hey, Fred, you want to be a teacher? And I was like, yeah, I could teach. And then from there, I went to the Savini School and built that program. I designed their first layouts for Fango. I was the guy that would go to high schools and get kids in there because they saw a 23-year-old kid. And you're like, hey, I'm Fred, I'm your teacher, I'm gonna do a live cast for you, I'm doing a makeup demo, and like, wow, I can do it. It's kind of how like, you know, I inspired Mr. Hoover here, so.
So each of you have your different style of filmmaking. As an independent filmmaker, what challenges do you guys find are the hardest to overcome?
I think with me, a lot of times it's talent. You know, it's finding people who are willing to be worker bees for you. You know, it's not the easiest thing when people have jobs, people have kids. So to get somebody to come out for a weekend and give up their time and crawl around on a pool basketball and get covered in blood and stuff, I mean, it's not the funnest thing in the world. So it's just been that for me, trying to get, I've never had a problem with budget because I'll just make whatever I can make, So it just really has come down to that, just finding someone who will go to the edge with me.
For me, same thing, it's who's willing to take the ride. But I'm also, I'm always trying to, break new ground on everything that I do. So, it's not about how many movies can I pump out in a year. It's about, what kind of damage I can create with my art.
The one question that kind of goes with that, especially the August Underground series, how did you find people that were willing to do that, to do a lot of that stuff?
Because I'm a smooth operator.
Nice.
You know what? August Underground was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know if this was going to work. I was influenced by movies like Cannibal Holocaust and Man Bites Dog, which are both foreign films. If you guys haven't seen them, they're pretty amazing. But they had the cinema verite look to it. Cinema verite is that like found footage look they call now. But at the time there wasn't really anything going on. The newest thing that came out was the Blair Witch Project. And with August Underground, I would show them the clip from Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. My actors would come in and I'd be like, all right, you see this scene here? I'm like, I'm making a whole movie like this. So like it has to look real, and if it doesn't look real, then it's not gonna go in the movie. And my actors were like, I had a casting director for the movie, and he brought in a few actors, but some of them were okay, and some of them didn't work. But when I realized that, I have to motivate them as an actor and not just as a director. Like I literally had to be like, all right, this is what we're gonna do in this scene, and then like, turn on my face and be the killer, you know what I mean? So it was a whole crazy different experience. It was easy for me to jump from being Fred and being the killer,
Fred as a director and as an actor will go as far as you will, you know what I mean? So Fred's like, I'll pull my fucking balls out right here, man. If that's what you need to be comfortable and understand that we're going over the edge, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I've eaten maggots for actors. I've done everything just to be like, hey, I'll do it too. There's nothing that I wouldn't do. I wouldn't ask any of my actors to do anything that I wouldn't do. And it's always about being safe and doing it right.
I think that really shows in their performances, and especially in Mordum. It's just over the top, crazy shit that you have those guys do.
People were very willing. In August Underground's Mordum, people have seen the first August Underground. So all the actors that were in August Underground's Mordum were fans of the first one, and they were like, ooh, let's see how far I can go. And they were also kind of excited to they still didn't know me. They were fans of this art, and it was kind of like, maybe he could kill me. This could be real. I don't know, and I think that's really what made the performances so great. Even though Jeremy would be like on the ground with a blood sprayer or something like that, but just being put into that situation of like your own demise is intriguing to a lot of people.
I wanted to see if there's some of your friends or family you grew up with that knew you wanted to be a filmmaker, but saw the content of your films and what their reaction was. Was there anybody that couldn't separate the art from the content, or anybody who maybe didn't look at you the same way anymore, or any fans of your films, or long-term friends that saw you differently after the movies?
My friends laughed at my movie because they know who I am. And they're like, Fred, you're gross. Why'd you make this movie? It's weird looking. It wasn't until the movie got out to you guys, and that's really when the power of the movies hit, because you didn't know who I was. You didn't know that I'm just a normal person with a sick brain.
The first time I met Fred, I swear to you, I thought he was gonna spit blood in my mouth and just hand me a clump of hair out of his pocket. Hold this, man. But then you meet him and he's like a ridiculously nice guy, and he's a family man, he's Granny Vogel was involved, and you know, there's a lot of like family spirit behind the ToeTag movie. There really is.
So Jason, talk about the series, The Collective. How did you, come up with the idea and spotlight some of your favorite shorts in it?
I originally picked up Fred's The Murder Collection, and it really was like, to me, it solved all the problems of independent filmmaking. It didn't matter how good your actors were. It didn't matter if your sound was great. It didn't matter, because it was real life, and real life isn't always perfect. You can't always get the perfect shot in real life. So coming off the end of that, I thought, okay, so if I can kind of do something like that in the same vein, while also solving all those problems for independent filmmakers and keeping it cheap and keeping it mobile, where they can just shoot something in a few days and afford it. So what we did was, The Collective is 10 different independent filmmakers, each make a 10-minute short film. And then we put the 10 films back together on a DVD, and they're all similarly themed. So we pick one theme, 10 films, so that you get to see each person's different interpretation of that same idea. And through the 6 collectives, we've done an object, the little cardboard box that drove every filmmaker nuts, because they were like, this is endless possibility, man. I don't know what to do with it. And volume 3 is all female filmmakers. I spent about 8 months asking people to name independent female filmmakers, and I would get nothing, 0 names back. So I was like, there has to be 10 independent female filmmakers out there. So we just tried to track them down and give them a space and a voice to try to make something. And by keeping it 10 minutes short, and by collecting them together, it keeps it cheap for the filmmakers to make, but also gives fans a viable product to buy, because it has 10 shorts on it. And, if you think 3 of them suck, at least you still have 7 you dug. So.
Yeah, my wife did one too.
Yeah, and Jeremy.
And Jeremy, yeah.
Now let's talk about I Am No One, your most recent film. Talk a little bit about maybe the research and the content of that film for the fans.
I consider that to be like my in utero. Like, I really made decisions in that kind of trying to piss people off. Like, there's no naked women in it. He doesn't kill any women. It's, I wanted to do a realistic view of a guy, a filmmaker who meets this guy, and as their relationship develops, it kind of takes these darker turns, which ultimately leads to the guy is a killer, and he lets this guy in on it. So I played the filmmaker in it, and I just tried to keep it really real. Every moment, every choice that I made was like, what would normal horror movies do here? All right, we're going to do the polar opposite of that. So while one of the kill scenes, there's complete silence for almost 7 minutes, which in the independent film world is no, you just don't do that. You should play some speed metal behind that, and everybody dies. So it really is. It's just, it bores a lot of people. I gotta be honest with you, it really does. It's much more about a man who kills people than it is about a guy killing people.
Yeah, with that, there's one scene I know you and I talked about where he just seems to be walking the streets of Chicago shopping for his next victim, and the music that you picked really just doesn't fit, and I thought that was a great point to it. So that makes me want to ask both of you, what do you feel music holds to a film? How important, I go to York for Necromantic 2. These horrible images, and there's piano music playing in the back. Tell us your thoughts on music and pornography.
Music's very important. In the August Underground music, all the music that you would hear in the movie would be your natural source music. But in my films like The Red Sun Tower, I was very fortunate to have 2 amazing musicians. I had Scott Hall from the band Pig Destroyer and Steve Moore from the band Zombie. And those guys always wanted to work together. They both worked for Relapse Records, and I kind of brought them together to do the amazing soundtrack for The Red Sun Tower. And Relapse gave me all the source music, so everybody from Pentagram to Jucifer to Zeke, and then like my film Celatursica, being a low budget movie and paying for music, I had the musician Mike Hammer do this amazing track, and through the course of the movie you would hear just the drum, and you would hear just the violin. And then through the course of the movie, and then during the climax of the film, you hear the whole soundtrack. But it's literally just layers, and that was me just layering it in until I get that reveal that for the walk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important part almost. Me and Fred have the benefit of watching movies without a film score because you picture logic first. And a film like I Am No One had almost no power with no music. It needed that. It really did. And what I love is you can change a scene so much, like you said with the piano music. If he went with a complete different turn with that, with heavy metal or whatever, it would make a different movie. It really would. So, I think movies like even The Bunny Game, Adam Ray Meyer's Bunny Game, has almost an absence of music. And I think that kind of lends to the film, that it's so stark and it's black and white and, a naked film. So I think if he did the normal thing everybody else would have done over the top of it, it would not have worked.
Being in the horror genre, everybody assumes that you want to have metal music in your movie.
That's because they all have metal music.
Yeah, well, a lot of them do, but I don't. For my film, The Reds and Tower, it was, these kids listen to rock and roll. They weren't metal kids. It's always in Maskhead. There's like country rock kind of stuff going on, and there's a cowboy character in there. That's what I need. I'm not going to put metal music with the country cowboy kind of guy. You know what I mean? So music is just as important as your lighting, your mood for your movie and everything. So music is very important.
Yeah, like imagine if in Silence of the Lambs that dude tucked his dick back, not too good by horses. You know what I mean? Like as soon as Good Boy Horses comes on ever, you're like, I fucking for sure, man. Like it is that important. It really is.
Great feature Days of the Dead has is the 48-hour Jabb Film Festival. You are in charge of picking the movies there, Jason. So tell us about some of the research that goes into that and why you pick the films you do.
Well, I'm fortunate that I kind of swim in those pools with independent filmmakers. So it's always really easy for me to say, hey, do you want to show your movie at a convention? I've never been turned down. I literally haven't. They're like, sure, I want people to see it. So what Days of the Dead did when Adolfo first approached me to do it was he wanted to show the independent scene. He wanted to give those people a space in which they could, shine. When you go to a lot of other horror shows and you see Halloween and Cabin Fever, and I don't need to see this again. So having the opportunity to, expose films that necessarily wouldn't have had that big of a crowd at one time really was great for me. So, it's been an easy thing for me to just kind of track down filmmakers and say, hey man, I think your movie's great. Want to show it.
Yeah, it's really great because, a lot of you guys might never heard of an underground scene or the independent horror scene. And then, just walking into a room and sitting down for 5 minutes and being enthralled by something that looks different than mainstream, that has way more soul and way more passion behind it than these $1 million movies that nobody gives a crap about.
Yeah, and there's plenty of new independent horror out there, but I always make sure in every event that we do to make a place for the guys who let us do this. And, Eric Stase and Fred literally made that a viable option for us. They literally created this setup where other people, their fans, would now support us as independent filmmakers. So I always try to keep those, spots for the guys like that to make sure, so, if you sat in there for the whole 48 hours, you would get a documentary, and you're going to get a movie that's 10 years old and unavailable on DVD. And, like, we're showing Scrapbook tonight. And we literally had to find a copy of that. Like, even the director didn't have one. We ended up finding one from Mr. Fred Vogel, who drove to Ohio to get his copy. So, just having that opportunity to be able to screen stuff that people wouldn't have normally seen is important. That, you may have never heard of some of these movies, but like Fred said, if you just wander in, there's a good chance you're going to stick around, because you're like, wait, this is an independent movie? Like, this looks like a regular movie, which I love that. That's my favorite term ever. This looks like a real movie. Because it is a real movie, man.
In Indy, you screened the August Underground trilogy.
A lady puked.
I don't know it.
The lady puked all over a chair.
There's always somebody throwing up when we do a triple feature screening. When we did the 10-year anniversary up in Strasbourg, somebody threw up all over that place.
There were a ton of this walking out like this. Just that. Just people like, ugh.
So it took me a week. I did a marathon. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I watched each of them, and I felt like my mind was just put through a ringer.
That's the point.
We put a thing underneath the schedule that said therapy will not be covered by us. No, you're going to get ruined. If you watch these 3 movies back to back, you're a different person.
And there was, what, 12 people that made it through?
Yeah, 12.
That's amazing that someone was able to do that. Now, speaking of August,
We haven't seen any of those 12 people ever again.
No, probably not. They're probably in a cave somewhere. Tell us, August Underground, how did you come up with it? You know, what were you going for, you know, as extreme as you went? And will there ever be a 4th?
When I was teaching at the Savini School, I wrote a script for my zombie epic called Elysium. And I pretty much, you know, did my best to reinvent the zombie genre. You know, now being a Pittsburgh guy, I wanted to make my zombie movies. But I couldn't, there was no way that I was going to be able to raise this kind of money. At the same time, some of my students were right into serial killers. And it really bothered me because, you know, like, why would you want Richard Ramirez autograph on your wall or a painting from Gacy or something like that? I just didn't fathom that. And it's because Hollywood glorifies serial killers, but they don't really take a look in, you know, how a victim's perspective. And that was something that I actually, when I made my movie The Redson Tower, my cousin was murdered. And it made me want to quit making more movies. But back to August Underground real quick. So I was just like, well, you know what? I want to make an anti-serial killer movie. I want to make something so intense and shows how serial killers really are. And I studied serial killers. I read everything that I possibly could on them. And, you know, when you're making movies in 99, 2000, 2001, anything shot on video looked like crap. It was just like, it was the lowest of the low. And, you know, even for me, I'm like, oh man, I wanted to, you know, if I shoot it on this really nice camera, it's still gonna look like video, and, you know, what do I do? I'm like, well, maybe if I make it look worse, you know, like it's you know, like an old tape that's got like tracking lines going through it, I'm like, maybe it'll give it a different feel. And just experimenting with like the really long camera takes without a cut for the special effects, like that was really important. It was like, all right, for this to look real, I have to figure out a way that I can pull off a makeup effect without a camera cut. So I would literally have to like, my cameraman, I would guide him with my hand on him or something like that. So if you know, when I was doing effect, like in the first August Underground, I'm like cutting off a toe, like his foot, and the foot started to break before my knife was going through it. So I kind of had to like move around so people could see my back instead of the effect right away when you see it. Stuff like that, you know, it was like all trial and error because I had no idea what I was doing, but I just needed to fool you guys, the viewer, into thinking what you're watching is real. I think did I get lost in the question at all?
No,
okay.
How did you complicate?
Yeah, but that's, you know, like again, it was just, I knew that a serial killer movie would be cheap, and this would be my stepping stone for me to make bigger movies. I didn't plan on becoming an underground filmmaker. It wasn't like, hey, I want to be like the main underground filmmaker. I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I thought August Underground was going to be the stepping stone to make the next movie. And you know, once you make a movie like August Underground, you show it to people, and people are like, ugh, you don't want to look at this. Did you really kill these people? You know, I was arrested for these films, and you know, but it just became something that I was so passionate about because then once I started getting feedback from people and seeing the power that they had, it was just like, I need to stick with this because, you know, nobody's saying you have to cut that scene out or you know, you can't do this. It was like, I can do anything I want. And that's underground, and like that's really what turned me on. That's what I wanted to do.
And we're gonna revisit August Underground?
You know, when you make, I didn't want to make a second one. But you know, the second one was the start of ToeTag. It was like the birth of, and I had, you know, there was lots of hands in the pot because I didn't care. You know, I was getting ready to go to Europe with Necrophagia and shoot a documentary there, and Broomorg just put, you know, the most disturbing film ever made on the cover of their magazine. It was just like, okay, you know what, this little thing, this August Underground's Mordum, this will just be something that like Jeremy can get a director credit on, and Chrissy can get one on, and Michael Schneider, and whatever. And it was just a way for it to grow the company. But then, when I came back from Europe and I saw the cut of the movie, and I was just like, ugh, you know, this is not an August Underground movie. And that's when I went back in and shot more scenes for it and kind of made it, you know, a little bit more cohesive and a better movie than what it was. And then I'm like, well, I need to fix this shit because like, I'm just gonna go back and I'm gonna make the most important August Underground film, and that was August Underground's Penance. So, yeah, done. Did it.
You know, I think that says a lot about Fred that, I mean, that's an easy check for him to cash. You know, if he puts out another extreme movie, I assure you people will buy it. So, you know, to have the balls as an artist to just say, I'm walking away from that, I don't want to do that anymore, and, you know, financially, to walk away from what is probably, you know, a good payday, just because he doesn't want to chase down that same thing again. And that's what I loved about Redson Tower. It was so, you know, different from the August Underground movie. That where August Underground went for hardcore gore and tried to push the envelope and tried to really disturb people. Redson Tower is a straight up movie. Like it's, you know, you can put that on TV any day, anytime, and it would work. So, and then to come off the
But it
back
does
of
have
that,
a birthing demon vagina in it.
well,
Can't put that
that's
on.
a birthing demon vagina. That's a lifetime. That's a,
You mentioned briefly about you got arrested for your film now. It's an interesting story, and I think as a fan, they'd probably all want to hear that story and how people react to a film.
You know, I never used it as publicity. You know, I was more ashamed about it, honestly. I was unveiling August Underground on DVD. I was a guest at Rue Morgue's Festival of Fear, and it was a big, huge deal. ToeTag was doing a Cinnabite makeup for Clyde Barker. We were going to release August Underground in the snuff edition on DVD. It was a really, really big deal. And when I made August Underground, it instantly became put on the FBI list because it was sent to the Fantasia Film Festival, which is run by a guy named Mitch Davis. And Mitch had some problems with his movie that he produced called Subconscious Cruelty, which is also on this list. So when August Underground crossed over into Montreal, they already had a red flag on them. And as soon as they saw that, it was just like, what is this? So when we crossed the border, you know, my name popped up or whatever, but we were flagged, pulled over, and you know, just shooting the shit with one of the cops there. And next thing I know, 2 police officers come out, and they're like, "Mr. Vogel?" And I'm like, "Yes," all smiles. They're like, "Can you come with us, please?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I go in the back room, and they sit me down, and they slap this big ass ball book down. They start flipping pages, and they're like, "We're placing you under arrest for this, for this, for this, for this," and my eyes were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. 18 obscenity laws I broke with my films going into Canada. And, you know, they're like, "Would you like to call your lawyer?" Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, this is movie, guys. Like, you know, look, here's my book. Here's my portfolio. Here's all the makeup. This is all, that dead girl in the movie, that's her. That's my wife here. You know, she's right here. Nobody's dead. So they did a background check on me. Like, their head person from Ottawa had to come in and do a background check on me. Meanwhile, they would, you know, I smoked cigarettes at the time. They were really cool. Canadians are really cool. So they were like, "Okay, you can go smoke a cigarette," after they locked me up in the cell for a little bit. And I'd be like, "Shelby, call Rodney Dino. Tell him I'm stuck at the border. You know, like, let these guys know." So she like snuck around and made a phone call and was like, "Fred's arrested." And those guys are trying to figure out how to get me out of jail at the border. 12, 13, 14 hours later, whatever, they finally let me go. They wouldn't let me take my movies into the country. They're like, "You can either keep your filth here and pick it up on your way back into the United States, you know, or you can just go into Canada without anything." So I literally went for my biggest release of my movie with 4 glossies of my face, and that's it. So.
I wanted to make free Red Vogel t-shirts.
If we let Justin Bieber over the border from Canada, they should let you over the border from Canada.
Well, now the movies are allowed over there. But, you know, New Zealand, banned in New Zealand. You know, I'm banned in so many countries with those movies, but it's, you know, I don't need to put a sticker on my movies that say banned in 43 countries, you know. Like, it's more of an experience when you just get it or you just see it, you know. I don't need to put that gimmick on there.
Right. Now, you went to the UK to film a documentary on macrophagia. Talk about that as opposed to filmmaking. You know, what's the difference between documentary filmmaking to, you know,
I never shot a documentary, so I was like, I don't really know what am I shooting? Like, do I do nice shots? Do I try to get as much footage as I possibly can and edit later? And that's pretty much what it became. The cool thing about necrophagia is that I had an idea of what we wanted to do. Killjoy was very influenced by August Underground, and he wanted to do this very realistic portrayal of the band. Like, they were these demons, these monsters, they drink human blood, and they do all this stuff on stage and kill people. And I was just going to make them look like they were really like that. So it was pretty easy and lots of fun. And it was, I was a rock star, man. Like, being a filmmaker, I think all filmmakers want to be rock stars, and all rock stars want to be in movies. So, like, I got to pretend to play guitar in front of 5,000 people in Portugal on the last day of the Necrophagia tour, and just rock out, even though I wasn't plugged in, but I can like make my fingers look good. But I was sitting there rocking in front of all these people, man, and lived my dream as a rock star. Pretty cool.
Now, Redson Tower, probably my favorite movie that you've done, is actually playing here tonight, so you guys may want to go see that.
Yeah.
Hard to get,
Yes.
hard to obtain. So I know you're in the process of coming out with a special edition.
Yes.
How's that coming along? Any idea when we can get our hands on it?
I'm hoping you guys will be able to get it this spring. We've been working really hard on it. It's going to have like an almost 2-hour documentary of the making of the movie and a retrospective of it. The Redson Tower was, after I got done doing the second August Underground, I didn't want to jump right into the third one because people were just going to be like, oh, this Fred Vogel guy, all he knows how to make is these snuff-looking movies. And the funny thing is like, I didn't even want to make snuff-looking movies. It was just, I did it out of necessity. So the Redson Tower was something that I really tried hard. I wanted to make the best-looking movie that I possibly could. And it came out, it played film festivals, and it won awards, and it did all this great stuff. But when it came time for distribution, everybody wanted to cut the movie. And, I kind of like stuck to my guns, and I, pretty much made everybody in ToeTag believe, like, this is what we should do. We shouldn't just give our movie away. And I pressed up 1,500 DVDs, and if you have one of those original ones, there's a little thing that's from ToeTag on there talking, and it was like, we put this out for you guys. You guys get to see it uncut. We don't know what's going to happen with the movie, but here it is. I wasn't happy with the transfer, and that's why we didn't do another pressing right after. And it kind of went into this out-of-print limbo for years. And it's taken a few years because life happens and new movies happen. And, I'm not one of those guys that like sits on a movie like I have to like invest 4 years of my life into one movie. It's like I'm thinking of the next movie as I'm editing because I can't even stand looking at what I'm looking at anymore. So that's why Redson Tower has taken kind of like a back seat because like, Celatursko is more important for me to make at the time. But now it's coming out in the Possession edition. It's going to have a beautiful, almost 2-hour documentary of the movie. It's going to have a brand new color-corrected picture. I think the only thing that'll be from the original on there might be the commentary with Christie, but it has an all-new cast commentary and a new ToeTag commentary.
Very cool. Now, moving quickly to Maskhead, another brutal film in its own right. It prominently features your wife Shelby. Tell us what it's been like working, with your partner.
Well, that's a great question. I wish she was here. She's always like, Fred never talks about me. My wife is one of the most amazing people you can ever meet. She's super talented, beautiful, and like a beautiful ray of sunshine. She really is, and she's so talented. She won't believe that I'm saying this, so if you see her, Dylan Fred said all kinds of nice stuff about her. But Maskhead was a really amazing opportunity because I got a phone call, an email, from a guy named Scott Swan who wrote John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns for the Masters of Horror. It was my favorite episode out of all of them. And he's like, Fred, I'm a huge fan. And he's like, my goal is to make an underground movie. And for me to make an underground movie, I have to make it with you. You're the man. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this is what I wanted. I wanted Hollywood to come to ToeTag and be like, I can have the freedom to make these movies with ToeTag. What if Tarantino could come to ToeTag and make a non-rated movie, the sickest thing he ever wanted to make, and like have fun and not worry about the politics and bullshit of making the Hollywood movie? Like, that's what I was always hoping that would happen. So when Swan came along, I didn't know what I was getting because this is a Hollywood guy and I'm an underground guy. Like, how do I impress this guy? I don't have trailers or anything like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, Fred, just make movies how you make movies. And when he came there, he was so green, and he had no idea what he was doing. So it made me like, all right, sweet. And I knew that for him and I to co-direct this movie together, I needed to have reliable people and people that I could trust. So that's why Shelby was a huge part of it. It was like, you know what? I know Shelby can act. I know she'll be great in it. And I knew all the people either crossed over from my film before that was Murder Collection. So I plucked a lot of people who I've already worked with, so it would be easier for Swan to deal with. You know, I already had a relationship, so it just made it a lot easier. But Shelby was definitely the backbone to that.
You know, Shelby's a very important part of ToeTag. She really is on the business side and the day-to-day kind of, you know, I mean, Fred is definitely the driving force artistically there, but, you know, without Shelby, I really don't know if it would work.
Oh, so true.
You know?
No, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, behind every great man is a great woman. You know, and I always think about Alfred Hitchcock and his wife and how important she was. Even though Hitchcock was the face, like how I might be the face of ToeTag, you know, it was his wife who would read the scripts and say, you should make this movie. It was his wife that would sit in on the editing and be like, no, this is great. And I do the same thing with my wife. And, you know, to have a business with your wife and then be husband and wife could be a crazy thing, but, you know, she's my soulmate, so there's never that, like, oh, God, I'm tired of this woman. Why don't you just go away? She always shoots me straight, and then sometimes I hate it because my ego will get in the way. You know, I'll be like, wait a minute, I'm Fred Vogel, what are you talking about? And she'll be like, you're not Fred Vogel.
Very cool. We'll talk about your upcoming stuff, and then we'll go to the audience and get your questions ready. Jason, what do you got coming up here in the future?
Not a lot. I'm working on a movie with Danny Hicks from Evil Dead 2 this summer. That coming out, and then for almost 2 years now, I've been working on this Jeffrey Dahmer documentary that I want to make, and it's, you know, I want to do it justice. I want to do the real Dahmer story, and it takes a lot of investment in that. And, you know, so I'm just trying to get all that stuff together and, you know, work on that. There's a collective volume 7 that will be coming out in June.
What's the Dahmer thing?
Buying
That's
a
always
bunch of
fantastic.
ToeTag
Me
stuff.
too.
Now, I know you got Pittsburgh body removal coming up, I think, right?
Yeah.
Any more information on that? Some of the research and stuff going into that?
When I get back home, I'm actually shooting the first. If you know me, you know that I'm very secretive when it comes to my films. I don't like to give a lot away, and I like to surprise my fans. But I'm telling you guys here, I'm shooting my first little thing that's going to let people know that my next movie is called Pittsburgh Body Removal. It's a passion project for me. It's something. My goal is to make an underground movie with movie stars. I think that's the only thing that's missing from the underground scene is getting the top talent. And I think with my career and, you know, the movies that I've made and the track record that I have, I think I can get that. Problem is I don't have the money. So I'm going to start doing an Indiegogo campaign to try to raise some money to hire a proper casting director to help get my script in front of the actors that I want. You know, gentlemen like, you know, Kiefer Sutherland and Matt Dillon. I think they would have an amazing opportunity and experience working with, you know, ToeTag. And then it will open more doors for, you know, guys like Jason to have that kind of caliber of actors. And just someone needs to do it, and nobody's done it. So my goal and like my pitch when I do my Indiegogo campaign is to let people know, like, hey, my goal is to bring movie stars into the underground and, you know, make a really important film that's not cluttered with Hollywood crap and personal.
Very cool. One thing before we go to the audience, Rue Morgue just featured you up to 2013 and the 50 Years of War. Tell me how that has to feel to be named with Herschel Gordon-Lewis, Tom Savini, Dario Argento. I mean, what is that like?
Wow. You know, Rue Morgue was the first magazine to break ToeTag. You know, when I made August Underground, I literally met Rue Morgue magazine at a convention just like Days of the Dead. And I walked up to them with my movie that was covered in fake blood and stuff, and I was like, this is my movie. A few days later, I get a phone call from Rocky Dino, the editor and owner of Rue Morgue at the time. And he was just like, you've done something that people have been trying to do for 20 years. You know, you made something look real, or you really killed these people, like either or. But he's like, I'm going to put you on the cover, and we're going to do a story on you. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, what are you talking about? That issue was the Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses issue. So if you can go back in time, House of a Thousand Corpses was one of the most anticipated horror movies back then because it kind of sat in limbo for a while. And when that issue came out, so it was Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, and then on the side, it said August Underground, the most disturbing movie ever made. And I literally woke up to like 200 emails from people all over the world wanting this movie. So Rimwork has always been interested in my work, supported my work, and you know, I was like the first underground filmmaker they ever really covered. You know, they covered Eric a little bit, but really give a proper thing was me. And when the Gourmet contacted me and said, Fred, you know, like we're doing this special issue, and this is what we're doing, I was like, why me? I'm like, why not Eli Roth? Why not, you know, Ty West? Why not, you know, all these other dudes who are the Hollywood gore guys? And, you know, he was like, well, they've all stolen from you. You are the most influential person in gore in the past, you know, 14 years, you know, the 2000s. And I was just blown away by that. And, you know, it's, even though I'm a little guy, not many people know who I am and stuff like that. Just to be put up with, you know, names like Tom Savini and York Bucaret and, you know, Dario Argento. I mean, it was just amazing. I'm actually on the cover of the brand new Gore Zone coming out as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I can't wait to check that out.
Yeah, it's a dream come true. That was like my favorite magazine as a kid. So, you know, the first issue they covered Fulci, the second one they covered Diodato, and the third one's me. So I'm pretty excited about
That's
it.
high honors, man, definitely. So does anybody have any questions for these guys?
Anybody?
Don't be afraid.
Okay, we got one back there.
I've been doing this before there was social media. ToeTag has an amazing fan base, and it all started because of word of mouth. It literally was one of those things where it was like, you have to see this. And that person would be like, you have to see this, and it kind of just. Now that there's social media, you know, of course we're on it, and of course we plug our stuff on social media, but you know, the sickness spreads in the people that I want it to, and that's really who I cater to. I can care less about, you know, I want everybody to love my stuff. It's not about that. I make my movies for a certain group of people, and if social media helps with that, awesome. If not, I can really care less.
And I think for guys like me with the newer kind of up and coming independent scene, I mean, Fred has a base. He has fans. They know his stuff. But for, you know, the up and coming kind of independent horror filmmakers, it's extremely important. It really is. It gives you, you know, accessibility to people that you wouldn't otherwise have a voice to. You can, you know, push to different groups and kind of, you know, focus on, like with Facebook, you can go to a group that just is independent horror filmmakers, you know, or just people who like independent horror. And, you know, even Fred didn't have that coming up. You know, when his movies first came out, he really kind of, that was the only way to move movies around, you know. But nowadays, I mean, someone can cut a trailer and put it on Facebook and it'll have 5,000 views in 2 days, you know. So I think it's hyper important for guys like me. I think we really couldn't have done it as well without it.
Anyone else? One more, maybe? No?
All right, what are your websites? Where can people find you?
You guys can find me at toetag.biz, B-I-Z.
Mine is jabbpictures.com, JABBPICTURS.
Both these guys have booths here. Check these guys out. These are guys that do independent horror the way it should be. And it's been an honor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.